So in this video we're going to look at reading a file, opening a file and reading its content. Now I've created a films.txt. I'm going to open it as read, and so I'm going to store that connection to the file in the variable f. So let's just check that's okay when I do that. It seems to not have a problem when I run it, so I can guess that it's actually able to open. Now if it had a problem, for example, if I'd mistyped the name of the file and I tried to open it, I would get this type of error. IO error, input-output error, no such file or directory exists. Typically, it's a misspelling. So if you can't find it, it will complain. Now notice, I used a capital S there. It's case insensitive for files, which can be quite useful for you. Okay, so I've opened it. Let's simply read everything that's inside it and store the content, the data inside the file by reading the file. Then let's print that out. Nice simple series of procedures. We have Pan's Labyrinth, Guillermo, a number, its rating, and so on. Okay, so that's nice and straightforward. What would be a very useful thing to do is look at different ways you can read a file. You could do read line. Now what does read line do? Let's have a look, shall we? Let's run it. It just reads a line. What happens if I run it twice? So if I copy that code and print and see where it gets to. Underneath, let's see what happens. It reads a line at a time. Interesting, if I do it 3 times, it's reading each line. So every time I call read line, it always automatically gives me the next available line. So that's quite useful to know. When you're finished with a file, you should always close it. If you don't close it, the risk in a real application is that you will end up locking a file and creating problems for other people who are working with that file. So that's what I would say in terms of simply opening a file. Now this is a very, very useful and very important thing to be able to do, because as I briefly mentioned, Python is very, very closely related to the development of data science, big data, manipulating data, and Python has built in string functions and file functions that make the process of opening a file and exploring it and seeing how it works. Now, what's interesting about this piece of data here is that it doesn't use a space, but it uses a comma to separate it. So what I want to do is just go back. Let's take a line. Let's run it again. So we have just a simple line. Okay, bear with me a second so you can see it. There it is, Pan's Labyrinth, comma, Guillermo del Toro. Now, if I split that, so if I use a variable and I call it S, and I take the data and I split it, right, and then print the split string. Let's have a look. Actually, we should really do it. So we should say for item in the split string. Let's just print each item, right? And let's have a look at what that does. Pan's Labyrinth, Guillermo del Toro. It's splitting it much more than I need. It's because this is a very typical comma separated file. Let me run a comma separated file and you will notice it's splitting it on the comma. So this mechanism of how you split it is quite crucial when you receive data in. Quite often it is comma separated. Certainly in finance, in the world of finance, it's comma separated. So I would recommend creating a file, putting some data in, and opening it and splitting it in this way, and just testing that you're happy with that.